Video games and anime are not a fun topic to discuss. Unless you like to complain about things like I do, of course. Many shows have tried to adapt their source well, but often they don't have enough episodes or are just generally poorly done. A good current example of what I'm talking about is the Phoenix Wright series that just finished airing. Instead of talking about adaptations like that, I want to talk about one that did this well. Kind of. The series stars Yuki Makoto, your stereotypical emo that has PTSD because his parents are dead. And of course, since he's the main character, he also is transferring to a new high school on Tatsume Port Island. However, before we even have a chance to think about that, the emo theme seems to continue as soon as our MC steps foot on land. What you see here is the dark hour, the 25th hour of the day that normal humans can't see because they turn into coffins. Well, or you can get eaten, so take your pick. Long story short, our MC can summon a persona that can be used to fight shadows, and he joins a group of others that can do this as well. The story does have more that I could explain, but to keep this short, this will do for anyone looking to get into the series. So now that we're past that, let's talk about this cast of characters. The group Yuki joins, aka C's, is a group of 9 other people. Now, this brings our cast up to 10 different characters, and as you can imagine, some get developed more than others. Good examples of this point are Fuka and Kamaru, who get very little screen time to their backstory, especially if you compare it to the time that Ken and Shinji get, for instance. I kind of get why they made this choice, because Fuka's backstory is pretty generic, and Kamaru's is short even in-game, but still, I feel like their stories really did get cut short. Everyone else for most of the series falls into your usual character types, like comic relief, shy, sporty, you get the point. I felt Yuki was one of the more interesting characters though, because he really did transform as a person. He starts out as a very quiet character, but slowly shows his true side the more his friends get in danger. With how I just described the story, you might be scratching your head in confusion. Wasn't this supposed to be a review of an anime that broke the bad video game to movie port stereotype? Well, yes, and if you could stop jumping to conclusions, I can show you why I chose this series. Movie 1, Spring of Birth, had a different director than the other 3 in the series. His name was Noriaki Akitaya. Why is this important, you may ask? Well, his style of directing is quite different from the other director, Tomohisa Taguchi, who directed the other 3 films. Noriaki followed the original story of Persona 3, but he used it to craft new original scenes for the movie. An example is the scene playing on the screen right now. As fellow players of Persona 3 know, this scene was played very differently in the game. Now this is nothing new anime-wise, but for the most part directors I've seen, including Tomohisa, follow the original story more strictly. In my opinion, this set movie 1 apart from the other movies in the series. It gave the story of Persona 3 a new twist, and as a person who has played the game, it was far more enjoyable. This will sort of give my final opinion away, but I feel that if Noriaki had directed the other movies, this series would have been much better. It gives the old fans something new to see, and also gives new fans a reason to go play the game and see what wasn't in the movies. In the end, I just find it was a real shame. So moving on from that, I have to say that the music in this series is probably my favorite aspect of it. The music in this series was composed by Shoji Meguro, and his style is usually very rock hip-hop oriented. There are calmer songs in the series that he has composed, like Because of a Friend, but he is more known for songs like Burn My Dread, aka the song that will get stuck in your head for a month. If you can't tell, I'm trying to nicely say that he isn't the best at making memorable, calmer songs. I never listened to the songs that played during the school scenes, for instance, and thought that, man, I want to listen to that afterwards. But you know, when a battle scene was on, I was into it. By the way, I'll list on screen some of my favorite tracks from the series so you can see some of the music that I'm talking about even if you haven't watched the movies yet. Now, one of the main problems I had with the music is more of a problem with the editing. During a few scenes, like the first time we see the school in the series, the music just sort of pops in out of nowhere. Kinda like a jump scare. Mini jump scare. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see, this is kind of jarring because it's not that hard to have the music just sort of slowly build up. Anyway, I do want to mention the voice acting real quick. I won't usually talk about voice acting in subbed anime because, well, if you haven't noticed, I'm American, but I feel I should give props to the voice actor of the main character. He did an excellent job as a voice for an originally voiceless character. Alright, so time to discuss the art and animation of the series. Now, when an animation studio changes mid-series, it can be worrying to some fans. Often because the second company can't emulate the same style of animation that it had before, or just the fans had a preference to one studio over another. Luckily, this ended up not really being a problem for this series, I found at least. The art and animation stay at a pretty consistent quality throughout the whole series, and you won't really notice much of a change. Now, the first of the two companies that handled the animation was AIC's Asta Division. They handled movie 1, and they also did Persona 4 the animation, which is why you might recognize the name if you're a Persona fan. Movies 2, 3, and 4, however, were handled by A1 Pictures, who we all know for... Oh yeah, and... A1 has had some good and bad moments in their history, and I'd place this one somewhere in the middle. The animation itself is fluent in action scenes and making hair flow lusciously for some odd reason, but the art style is nothing that we haven't seen before, honestly. Not only that, but at some points you can notice CG. All in all, the art and animation is fine, but sadly that's all it is. Fine. It's really all I can say on this subject. Now that we've covered everything else that I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about the ending of the series. If you haven't seen the show or played the game, please do not watch further and skip to the time on screen. Or you can be a rebel if you want. I'll let you choose. Sadly, the ending follows the theme of problems that I've had with the story throughout this whole review. It's generic. As you probably could have guessed, the good guy fights the bad guy, and the good guy wins but at a sacrifice. It's something that's been seen at the end of other action series, and to any viewer who pays attention, it's easy to see coming. However, I can't say that I disliked it all. There was one part of the ending that I did enjoy. The scene where the main character comes back to keep his promise to his friends and spend graduation with them is done well. It was cheesy and generic, yes, but I still feel like it was a nice way to end the series. I like the ending in the game, and I like it here, so you can call me biased if you want. I do want to mention something though. I know they were going for the dreamy feeling for this scene, but I feel like the contrast could have been turned way down. There are ways to do this scene and still have it hit the audience without doing it in this weird, generic way. And that's really all I can say about the ending, so let's move on to my final thoughts. My final thoughts on Persona 3 are conflicted ones. On one hand, I loved the game and I loved what was done with movie 1. I liked the music, the action scenes were fun, and I thought the ending was overall nice. But on the other hand, the path the story went in movies 2, 3, and 4 were generic. Not only that, but at points, I do feel like the animation could have been better. Taking all of my points that I've made in this video into consideration, my final rating for Persona 3 the movie series is a 6.9 out of 10. I wish I could rate the series higher, but the story of Persona 3, if followed this strictly, works better as a game, and not a movie. But this doesn't mean I hated it. If anything, I enjoyed my time watching it, and maybe in the future I'll watch it again. Anyway, if you want to buy the series, it's licensed by Aniplex and is available on their site. If you don't want to pick up the whole series, I at least recommend that you pick up movie 1, and maybe a copy of the game if you enjoyed it. But if you disagree with me or otherwise, then tell me your opinion down below, and with that, I'll see you guys in the next review.